And what it does for you is it keeps you off minimap, undetectable by radar, which is very good. And it also has a little 2 carrots for firing aim stability. So it helps your firing aim stability moderately. He did some testing with recoil plots. They aren't super dramatic, but they definitely help. And also it helps more on certain guns versus others. Activision devs do not play their own game.
3,000 devs can't figure out how to add a reconnect feature to a AAA title, I guess. I don't know.
Because Infinity Ward doesn't tell their consumers anything.
Maybe that'll take some of the sweats away from Shoot House.
You can cope about that for sure.
Thanks for tweeting, at least. Thanks for doing more than Infinity Ward has done. They just keep tweeting about the soccer bundles in the store.
Things that are bad. We got a couple words. Why don't you kick it off, Tanner?
This is going to be a longer section than the first part you guys heard.
Change it, obviously, of course. We are live, boys and girls. Welcome to the Dropshot Call of Duty Podcast, episode number 424. My name is Casey, also known as Razinon, and what I should have said is I am live. Because while I am joined by young Tanner in spirit and in picture, I am not joined by young Tanner in actual fact. Tanner Dropshot, sometimes co-host of this program, pictured here for you. This is young Tanner when he had hair, because he doesn't have hair anymore. So here's a picture of him with hair. And if you are just listening, you can go to our YouTube channel or our website, thedropshot.com, of course, and find the video version of the podcast and see Tanner with hair, because he doesn't have any anymore. I have young Tanner pictured here, but he's not actually here. He is in Zion National Park at the moment, sipping Mai Tais and snorkeling with turtles or something. That's what they're saying. It's a little sunburn in that image, by the way, which is funny. He looks very happy to be there too. Anyways, I'm doing it solo today. Welcome to the show. And because I'm doing it solo, I demand you like the stream if you're here live, and also like, comment, and like the uploaded video or something. You know, help me out. Help us out. So, anyways, welcome to the show. Today, I should say, an episode. So, yeah, we knew Tanner was going to be out of town, Tanner and I, obviously, for this week. So what we have done is basically decided I'll just do this one solo, today's episode, because we did not anticipate there would be too much to talk about, since we last week got, the big patch, Season 3 Reloaded, or bigger than what we've gotten this week, which has turned out to be true. So this will likely be a bit shorter of an episode than normal, but I'm still going to cover everything we would have otherwise covered for the week. And there are a couple things to talk about. The tax sprint thing is finally fixed, asterisk, and we'll get into that. And then a couple other things I want to point out and talk about, which Ace actually also mentioned. Namely, a new attachment that is pretty solid. But we'll get into that, or I'll get into that shortly here. And then a couple little news items, nothing crazy. So yeah, gonna be a shorter episode than normal, but fear not, because on Saturday, we have Tanner and I pre-recorded a fun and exciting episode for you guys. And it is nice and long, by the way. You guys really liked the tier lists. We asked if you would want more of those. And resoundingly, you guys said yes. The analytics showed that as well, that you guys really liked the tier list episodes we've done so far. Namely, part 1 and 2 of the favorite Warzone POIs. We ranked them, talked about them. That was really fun. You guys still haven't found the cave by Al Sharim Pass, but it is there. So go look for it. And Tanner and I pre-recorded a nice little tier list episode for you that will be coming out on Saturday. Tomorrow I will have it scheduled, so you'll see it sometime Friday afternoon. And it will be like a premiere, so you can still go watch live. I'll be hanging out in chat while that's premiering. And that's going to be a fun one. I already know because we recorded it. And that's also a part 1. So we will eventually finish up that tier list because there are a lot of guns and there was a lot more we had to say than we expected to. So we did, I think, MW19 guns and Cold War guns. And then we were at like 2 hours. So we called it there. So we'll do a part 2 and maybe part 3 of that meta weapons tier list. And it was really fun to do. It was a nice little walk down memory lane. So that's what we'll have for you on Saturday. If you're a patron, you'll get early access to that on apps on Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. If you are not, then you can either watch the premiere or find it on YouTube, or wait until Monday, which is when we will actually, yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out. It'll be out on Monday at the latest, but it'll premiere if you want to watch it live. Anyone can do that on our YouTube or again on our website, thedropshot.com. Now, other than that, I don't believe we really have any other announcements here. We have not done a Patreon episode, obviously. We considered pre-recording another one, but I mean, the reload thing kind of put a stop to that plan, and there wouldn't have been a ton to go into anyways, because Season 3 Reloaded was not a momentous change, as we talked about last week. But nonetheless, we will have all of our Patreon episodes out this month like we always do, and those you can probably expect to start rolling in by the end of next week. We'll start getting some Patreon content out there. Now that the reload bug is fixed, Tanner will be back, and Rebirth audio is ostensibly fixed as well. So we will get into that and do some content on it for the Patreon, as well as some other, topics later down the road. So other than that, I believe that is it. So if you were listening for the jingle, here it is. And keep in mind, I'm solo, so I might need to take a couple little sips, little water breaks. There will be some dead air, and you'll deal with it, man. You know what I mean? That's what I always say. Are we gonna play the Tarkov wipe when it comes? That's a question for sure. I don't know. Yeah, probably. All right, speaking of which. Oh, yeah. That's some water. All right. Today, episode 424. So, as I said at the outset, I will be covering everything we would otherwise cover this week. And with that in mind, this is not going to be the longest episode we've ever done by any means. Not too much has changed. However, we have gotten two patches within the last week. One was on the 8th on Wednesday, and then there was another one today on the 9th, which was a lot less impactful. So let's take these in chronological order. So on Wednesday, the 8th, starting with the multiplayer section, by the way, there are Warzone patch notes as well. I'll get into those after this, but this is the multiplayer section here. A lot of bug fixes and stuff. Nothing too crazy, I don't think, on the 8th, with one exception. addressed a crash that could occur upon challenge completion, blah, blah, blah. Some bug fixes, excuse me. And I did read through these, and I don't think most of this was worth covering. Let's see. Just making sure here. Yeah. Nothing really crazy. Some map changes, mode changes, whatever. This is the big one everyone's talking about. Commando gloves. Reloads are no longer canceled upon moving when auto tack is enabled. W. So there was another change to how commando gloves works, which I will get into a little later. But the TLDR is they are in fact finally fixed. You can now reload in Warzone if you have auto tack on, for reasons I will get into shortly. But yeah, in multiplayer, it works as well. I tested it 20 minutes ago, to be sure. So if you have auto tack on and you reload and then you start moving, you will simply sprint rather than tactical sprint if you have commando gloves and you're playing multiplayer. If you're playing Warzone and you have auto tack sprint on, and therefore you have commando gloves by default, it'll work the same way. So if you reload and then you start moving, instead of tactical sprinting and therefore canceling your reload, the game will just step you down to regular sprinting. So it'll effectively function as intended. Now, the only difference from before Season 3 Reloaded to now with respect to commando gloves and auto tack sprint and Warzone and all that is that it was the case before that you could not cancel a reload while by tack sprinting in Warzone or with commando gloves in multiplayer at all. You would have to do like the weapon swap thing where you press weapon swap twice. Now the way it works is if you're on controller and you're using auto tack sprint in Warzone, which is probably the case for the vast majority of you, you now can cancel your reload even if you have auto tack sprint by actually depressing L3, your stick in, like pressing your sprint button. That will still cancel, that will now cancel a reload for you in Warzone, whether or not you have auto tactical sprint on. So basically before it was impossible in Warzone if you had auto tack to, or if you didn't have auto tack actually, I think, to cancel your reload by tactical sprinting. Now it is possible. And who cares? I don't like this change. I don't think it was necessary. And also, I mean, we've had this game with the commando gloves integration into Warzone for how long? 6 months now? 5 months? By now, everyone's muscle memory who plays Warzone regularly, who uses a controller with auto tack sprint, if they used to do sprint to cancel reload before, they've broken that habit by now because they've been playing Warzone for 5 months and the only way to cancel a reload in Warzone was to do the weapon swap trick. So everyone's in that habit now. So I don't know whom this was for. It's not a big deal if you're on controller or if you're using auto tack, to be clear, because now it's fixed. And so it doesn't matter. You can still cancel your reload the same way you used to. But now there's a new way to cancel your reload that you won't use because that's not your muscle memory anymore. So I don't like this change at all. And if you play on keyboard and mouse, this is actually quite annoying. And I tested this morning. Most KBAM players, I would assume, certainly all the ones I know, use the setting single tap run for tack sprint. So basically, if you're moving forward on KBAM and you have auto tack sprint off, then you simply are just walking. And the reason we do this is because it's easy for us to start tack sprinting way easier than it is on controller since we're on a keyboard. And also, it allows you to use shotguns or any hipfire build way more effectively, or to move quietly without ADS walking also. So it's like good to be able to do that. It's just probably not worth doing on controller, because then you can't have auto tac sprint on, obviously. So for most controller players, this doesn't matter, but for KBAM, it does, because it's so easy to auto tac or to tac sprint that we don't have auto tac sprint on usually. Some people do, but a lot of people don't, like me and people I play with. So we had it on single tap run. So basically, if you're moving forward, you'll just walk. But then if you press your sprint key, you will immediately start tac sprinting if you have tac sprint. If you're out of tac sprint, then you'll just regular sprint instead. So it basically prioritizes tac sprint when you press your sprint button. But if you don't have tac sprint when you press your sprint button, then you'll just regular sprint. It worked seamlessly and perfectly, and it was a huge quality of life improvement for keyboard and mouse when this feature came out, which I believe was an MW 2, might have been an MW 3. But then in MW 3, we got commando gloves, and it still worked just as intended. I could walk, I could sprint, and if I reloaded and then hit my sprint key, I wouldn't go into attack sprint because I was reloading. It would just put me in a regular sprint so as to not interrupt my reload. Now it interrupts my reload. And this is intentional. This is what they wanted there to be. But like I just said about controllers, I've been playing this for 5 months. I am already in the habit, if I need to cancel a reload, of not sprinting in Warzone to do that, since it hasn't broken my reload for 5 months. I'm already in the habit of just pressing weapon swap twice, and it's fine, perfectly fine. But now I can't. Now, since I cannot use a single tap run anymore, I now have to change my keybinds. So now I have to be double tapping my shift key every single time I want to tac sprint, just like MW 19. And it's a massive step backwards for keyboard and mouse. What they should have done is either not done this at all, because everyone's already, again, in the habit of breaking their reload by using weapon swap, or if they really wanted to keep doing this, give me a setting in the menu to where I can disable this functionality. Actually, you know what? There is a setting called Sprint Cancels Reload in the menus, and I have that on. I wonder if I turned that off and I had single tap run, if that would interrupt my reload if I have commando gloves on and or if I'm in Warzone. I will try that and let you guys know, because that would be great. But I spent too much time on this. TLDR, for the vast majority of you, it's fine. And this is fixed now. So there you go. Anyways, back to the patch notes here. Sorry for that diatribe. In hardcore, minimap is now displayed on the HUD while an EMD tracking device is active on an enemy. Okay. And then some zombies things, which obviously I'm not reading on principle, and that was pretty much it. So the big thing there, obviously, was the commando gloves reload thing. There was also a patch today for primarily the Lockwood Mark II, and also known as the Model 1887 Akimbos. So those of you who have been playing multiplayer, so by the way, I played multiplayer yesterday for like 3 hours. I got on and I had some goals. I wanted to do the newest weekly challenge to unlock the, I believe it's the AMR Burst conversion kit. I don't know why I unlocked it. I just like doing all the weekly challenges. I'm never going to use it, of course. But I wanted to do that. I wanted to unlock the Ball 27, the new AR. And then I wanted to get that max level and get the new sniper max level. So I did all that yesterday. So I played quite a bit of multiplayer, 3 hours or so, I would say. And I was playing small map mosh pit because that's the fastest way to level guns and do challenges, obviously. Most player density, enemy density. And these Akimbo Lockwoods, the Jack Warden's conversion kit, the Akimbo shotguns, are a menace. They were absolutely insane, broken, and not fun at all, especially in small map mosh pit. It was not fun or exciting. So, hearing my desperate silent prayers, it turns out, they were addressed. Now, I would say they were nerfed, but they weren't like totally ruined, interestingly, and kind of surprisingly, but they're probably less toxic than they were for me yesterday, now that we've gotten this patch today. So, one thing that changed, resolved an issue causing arcade mode weapons and power-ups to retain into other playlists. That's hilarious that that was happening, but that's fixed now, I guess. But the main thing here is a bunch of changes to the Lockwood conversion kit. So they increased the hipfire spread minimum by 43%. This doesn't matter because you're never getting your minimum hipfire spread. The only way you get minimum hipfire spread is by not moving and being crouched. No one's ever playing that way, so it doesn't matter that that got nerfed. 43% sounds like a lot, but that doesn't matter at all. Or very little, because I guess you go from minimum to maximum sometimes and maybe get in a gunfight. Still not a big deal, though, because most of the time you're at your maximum hipfire spread. However, that was also nerfed. That is now 5% worse, your max hipfire spread. Max hipfire spread meaning the worst it can possibly get. So that's going to be like, you know, most of the time, because most of the time you're going to be moving or jumping or whatever. And that's when your hipfire spread gets as bad as it can be. However, again, that was only impacted by 5%. That's why I'm saying they weren't like totally gutted. And if you build them for hipfire, which obviously you should be doing, they're still going to have decent hipfire spread in practice, because 5% extra is not a huge deal, I don't think. Keep in mind, I have not used these before or after this change, so I could be wrong. And then they also changed the slug shells and the gauge ball ammo for this conversion kit in a ton of ways. I'm not going to read them, but here's what they say in a blurb. Our goal for the gauge slug shells is to increase damage consistency in close range engagements while simultaneously limiting the likelihood of kills at extreme distances by reducing their damage range and by increasing hipfire spread. So that's a smart thing to do. Basically, their goal, which it looks like they've probably accomplished, is to keep them very viable up close, because they are shotguns. So they should be viable up close. That's fine. But reduce their ability to just snipe people and one-tap them in multiplayer, which they were absolutely doing, and they probably aren't now. So, good change, and actually still usable insofar as they're shotguns, but they're not, hopefully, as disgusting as they were for me yesterday. In addition, for ranked play, they restricted the new suppressor. We're going to get into that. And then they also restricted, or disallowing in multiplayer ranked, the EMD mine equipment, which no one's using anyway, or the enhanced vision goggles field upgrade, which also no one's using anyway. So the big thing there, I think, is that suppressor. And again, we're going to get more into that in a moment. So that's it for multiplayer. So yeah, not many changes this week, but the big one, of course, is the reload bug is fixed in Warzone and in multiplayer. So if you are on controller and use auto attack sprint, you are cleared hot to go back and play. And I tested it. It works. So that's good. And then also, I guess, for multiplayer, that nerf to the shotguns makes multiplayer a lot less cancer as well. So yeah, the game's definitely better now, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Not a ton of changes this week. And the same is true for Warzone. So moving on to the Warzone patch notes, we likewise got a patch on the 8th, Wednesday, and the 9th. today. So, and they pretty much mirror the multiplayer ones. Again, fix the issue causing auto attack to interrupt attempts to reload a weapon. Here's another big one though. Fixed an issue causing the prioritize interact setting on controllers to prevent players from reloading. I don't play on controller this season, so I did not experience, this myself, but they've supposedly fixed it now. And this was supposedly really toxic if you were on controller. So not only did you have the reload bug, where if you moved your character, it would cancel, but also, even if you stood still, if you were standing on loot, you wouldn't be able to reload either, because of this setting or whatever. You'd like pick something up instead. Really toxic, but they fixed it, so that's really good. And then that's pretty much it for bug fixes. A couple more that don't really matter. And that was it for the 8th. So once again, as I said, you are clear for liftoff if you're on that thing and you want to play Warzone again. It is safe to return. And then today, they also nerfed the Jack Warden's conversion kit in Warzone. I've been watching some streams here and there. I have not seen anyone using these in Warzone. I can't imagine they're good. And now they have less damage range and worse hip fire, and less damage actually, in their second damage range as well. So they were nerfed in Warzone. They probably weren't good before, and they almost certainly are not good now. So, doesn't really matter, but there you go. And that's it for Warzone. So a lot less to talk about there. And that's pretty much it. Any questions, class? Got it. So in addition to that, let me look here. Give me 1 second. So yeah, yesterday COD Updates also made a little clarifying tweet on the Commando Gloves issue for Warzone. We've updated Tac Sprint to no longer interrupt the weapon reload animation if a player begins to move and taps the sprint keybind. Players will simply reduce to normal sprint speed until the end of the reload. So that might address my issue in Warzone with the single tap run conundrum I was talking about. But it doesn't work that way in multiplayer. So unless this is like a Warzone specific change, I doubt it's going to work for me in Warzone either. But it'd be really nice if it did. And again, I will for sure be testing this because I do not want to have to go back to double tapping sprint. But anyway, there's some clarity for you. Today, 3 hours ago, they tweeted this. I'm not sure what the deal is here. We are for Warzone. We are investigating an issue that is preventing players from interacting with objects while reloading if they have enabled the controller prioritize interact option. So again, this is a controller thing. I guess what it sounds like is the case is that let's say you're in front of an unopened box and you start reloading and you want to open the box while you're reloading. This is what you should be doing in Warzone, by the way. I do it all the time. Saves you time. Do as many actions in at the same time as you possibly can, obviously. Evidently, if you have that setting on for controller, you can't do that right now. And they're investigating. Not as bad as the other interact bug, but still kind of annoying. So keep that in mind. They're looking into it. This was tweeted today. By the time many of you are hearing this, this might already be fixed. I would imagine this is going to be an easier fix than the reload fix was for them. So there you go. Now, besides that, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, which is a new attachment. Actually, two new things. So I thought this was going to be in the patch notes, but it actually wasn't. I talked about recently, and I don't know if this was publicly or on a Patreon episode, but one of the new suppressors for SMGs is called the Requieter suppressor. And to unlock it, you have to level up the FJX Horus to whatever level, and then you unlock the suppressor. But you can use that suppressor on any SMG, not just the Horus. And I had unlocked it, and also I looked into it, and it's really good. Because what it does is it keeps you off radar, which is great. And then it also, I believe, improves your aim down sight speed. And there's maybe one up, and there's firing aim stability as well. I'm pretty sure that's what it does. And the only downside is laser visible in ADS, but it was not visible at all. You wouldn't be able to see it. So it was basically a suppressor attachment that also made you ADS faster and improves your recoil a little bit with literally no downsides because you couldn't see the laser. Ace did a video, and I will link the video in the description, talking about a new suppressor, not this one, but he also tangentially mentioned, hey, by the way, they stealth nerfed the Requieter a little bit, and they made the laser more visible than it used to be. RIP. So keep in mind, if you've been using the Requieter on my recommendation, now you can see the laser, but it's still not bad. It's not like the green lasers that are insanely bright that you will always see no matter what. I would say it's pretty hard to see. And since it's an SMG and the laser only appears when you're ADS'd, I don't think it matters that much. Because if I'm holding an angle with an SMG, I'm probably not ADSing holding it. And even if I am, they might not see it, because again, it's still not that bright, but it is brighter than it used to be. But usually I'm holding an angle. Usually you're not holding an angle at all with an SMG, really. So like the laser being visible in ADS, even if it was insanely visible, I don't think would matter that much, because most of the time, once you're ADS with a SMG, it's because you are shooting. So it doesn't matter at that point. So just a quick aside there. But anyways, the main point of the video, which I will have linked for you guys in the show notes, is on a new suppressor. And much like the Requieter, which required you to level up the Horus, one of the new SMGs, to unlock it, this new suppressor requires you to level up the Ball 27, the new AR, to unlock it. And once you unlock it, it is a suppressor you can put on any assault rifle. And maybe LMGs and battle rifles also. Not 100% sure on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. But at the very minimum, you can put it on every AR. And it's called the Scratch 20L suppressor. New suppressor. And Ace said, like, this is a really good suppressor, was basically the TLDR of the video. And what it does for you is it keeps you off minimap, undetectable by radar, which is very good. And it also has a little 2 carats for firing aim stability. So it helps your firing aim stability moderately. He did some testing with recoil plots. I'm not going to show them. They aren't super dramatic, but they definitely help. And also it helps more on certain guns versus others. So if a gun has really bad firing aim stability, obviously this suppressor is going to be more impactful on that gun than a gun that has default really good firing aim stability. But either way, it's a silencer that also gives you basically free firing aim stability. What are the downsides? The downside is only aim down sight speed, and it adds literally 1% aim down sight speed. So if you've been using, for example, in Warzone, the Shadow Strike suppressor, because it keeps you off minimap with literally no downsides, switch to this. Because this is the same thing as the Shadow Strike, except it also gives you firing aim stability. And there's technically an ADS penalty, but again, it's literally 1%. So keep in mind, even if your gun ADS is really slow, let's say 350 milliseconds, right? What is 1% of 350 milliseconds? 3.5 milliseconds. It's literally not a downside at all. Your gun would have to ADS actually 2000 milliseconds for this to maybe start mattering, because then you would ADS 20 milliseconds slower, which is also probably actually not very noticeable at all. But no one's gun is 2000 milliseconds ADS time. Your AR's ADS speed is probably, 350, maybe 400. And now you ADS 4 milliseconds slower, doesn't matter. So basically, if you've been using the Shadow Strike on any gun, in multiplayer or Warzone, switch it to the Scratch 20L. Because it's the Shadow Strike, plus it gives you firing aim stability, so basically free recoil control. Now, I wouldn't say you should replace a Spirit Fire suppressor with this new suppressor, because the Spirit Fire gives you bullet velocity and I think recoil control as well. So there are reasons you would want to use a Spirit Fire that the Scratch 20 does not give you. But again, if you want to just stay off minimap and that's all you care about, but you don't want any downsides, this should be the new suppressor you're running for sure. And a lot of the reason I'm covering this is because a lot of you might not know that there's a new attachment because it's tied to a gun that's not very good. So you probably haven't leveled it, so you don't even know this exists. So basically, yeah, if you use the Shadow Strike, I would highly encourage you to level up your ball 27, unlock it, level it up so you can unlock this new suppressor, and then you just have a better attachment on all those. So if you want more details or to look at all the recoil plots, again, you can look at his video. I'll have it linked in the description / show notes for you guys. But yeah, it's, I don't think it's super necessary, but you can do that if you want. So he also shows a laser comparison for the Requieter, by the way, if you're curious in seeing how much more visible that laser is as well in the beginning of the video. So yeah, that'll be linked. You guys can go look at it if you want. And that's it for patch notes and changes already in effect. So we did get a stealth patch note. What did we used to call them? Oh my God, what did we call them? Hidden patch notes. That's right. We did get one hidden patch. They changed the laser. Anyway, yeah, moving on. News and upcoming changes. Not very much to talk about here. First and foremost, though, of course, the Wubz, Stubbs, and Bubs bundle is now finally in Warzone and MW 2. Wow! So Tanner and I were gushing about this really stupid bundle when we covered Season 3 Reloaded patch notes last week. You buy it, you get a tracer pack, and you get some other goofy stuff that you'll never use. And you get 4 operator skins, and they're just made up characters. And they're like with the googly eyes that you'll like glue on to stuff in kindergarten. You know what I mean? It has those eyes, and then it looks like a bipedal, kind of like Chewbacca, I guess, with a wider head, no neck, and googly eyes on it. It's so stupid looking that it's based, and it's now out. It's available. You can go buy it if you want. And you get 4 colors. So we will all be rocking that. It also, again, yeah, it has the tracers and the that little like squad bonus XP thing. So if you're in a squad with other people using it, you get like extra XP or whatever. We talked about that in the patch notes. That's pretty cool. It's not the only bundle that does that, I don't think, but it is one of them. But anyway, just wanted to point that out. People in Discord have already figured it out. They're talking about it. But yeah, Charlie Intel tweeted it as well. Pretty funny. So there you go. And then on to a more serious news item here. Many of you might be interested in this as well. Charlie Intel tweeted yesterday, The Verge is reporting Xbox executives have been debating for months whether or not to put Call of Duty on Xbox Game Pass because of how much revenue will be lost. There are also discussions happening internally about potentially increasing the Game Pass price. And then there's a little snippet of the Verge article here that I will read. One second. So yeah, this is an excerpt from the Verge article. Quote, Microsoft has also had internal debates about whether to put new releases into COD into Game Pass. I understand this is a debate that has been going on internally, or ongoing internally, for quite some time, with concerns from some that the revenue that COD typically generates for Blizzard will be undermined by Game Pass. So, yeah. I'm told that Microsoft has also considered increasing the price of Game Pass Ultimate again. These are only considerations, so a final decision could mean we still see a future COD release appear in most versions of Game Pass. The debate internally reflects that Microsoft's Xbox strategy has shifted from just delivering its games exclusively into Game Pass to considering bringing more Xbox games to multiple platforms. So that's pretty interesting. This was one of probably the biggest implication that people talked about of Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard, which took a while. I want to say it took like 2 years from when it was announced. But they've done it now. Microsoft owns Activision now. And in the whole lead up to that, I would say the biggest thing people talked about was, does this mean COD is coming to Game Pass? And it looks like, yeah, there's still some debate on that topic because they're worried about how much money they would lose, which is a fair concern because when you look at every single year, what is the best-selling video game for the entire year? It's always the new COD. And keep in mind, it releases in the last 2 months of the year, and it's still the best-selling game for the whole year, for the whole calendar year, like always. So they sell a ton of boxes of the game, and if they put it on Game Pass, they wouldn't be selling nearly as many. Well, I don't know how many people are on Game Pass, but they wouldn't be selling as many boxes because people with Game Pass would not need to buy the game, obviously. Now, on the other hand, if COD does come to Game Pass, you would also expect people who would not otherwise get Game Pass would in fact buy it, knowing that COD is now on Game Pass. They're like, okay, I might as well sign up for it because I would get COD instead of having to buy it, and I'd also get all the other games that Game Pass gives you. So I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, they don't either. But it seems like they think that would lose them money. Or at least that's the worry, is that it would lose them money. So it sounds like they don't expect the increase in Game Pass sales by allowing COD on Game Pass would be greater than disallowing it on Game Pass and just selling COD boxes to those people instead, like they have been doing. I don't know. So if you were really excited for it to come to Game Pass, maybe you should be concerned. But I will also say this, I didn't know there were different versions of Game Pass. I don't have it. But if it is going to come to Game Pass, it's going to be on their most expensive version of Game Pass. So it's going to be Game Pass plus premium or whatever. Whatever the most expensive Game Pass you can buy, that if COD is going anywhere, it will only be accessible on that one for sure. There's no shot it's going to come to a middling or the cheapest Game Pass available if they're already this concerned about it. I think best case scenario, it comes to the most expensive version of Game Pass. So that's another thing to keep in mind for you. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure we will report if if they announce, make a determination, but we'll probably also find out pretty soon because they will make a determination before this year's COD, which is expected again. I think it was late October, they said. So pretty early this year. But yeah, so there you go. And then that's pretty much it. Last thing I wrote down here, this is outside of the COD sphere, is there's another new game out called Arena Breakout Infinite. It's not out, but it's in like closed beta right now. You can apply for a key, but basically what it is, it's backed by Tencent, which is like the biggest company on earth. It's a Chinese, I don't know what all they do, but they're, among other things, possibly they're involved in developing or publishing. I think they're a publisher, video games, and really big ones. So I think Fortnite is Tencent. Maybe, let me see. Yeah, it's a Chinese multinational technology conglomerate and holding company headquartered in Shenzhen. So, Shenzhen. So, whatever. WeChat. Let's see. Where? I'm looking for the video games that they're in. Video game. Tencent games. Here we go. I know there's a huge one. Is it Fortnite? They have divisions of... Yeah, okay. They have divisions of, like, developers, it looks like. Dude, I know they have a huge game. Anyway, whatever. Oh, one of their big games is Call of Duty Mobile. So, okay, yeah. And I think there are other ones. I want to say Fortnite. I don't know. I can't find it. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, yeah. There's this game called Arena Breakout, and it's been on mobile for quite a while. And it's basically a mobile Escape from Tarkov. You can play on your cell phone. And it's like very heavily monetized, a ton of microtransactions, and it's like actually pay to win on mobile. That's what I've heard. But they did a port of the mobile game to PC called Arena Breakout Infinite, and that has entered closed beta, and every Tarkov streamer is like streaming and playing it right now, and they all say it's pretty good. It's not like out yet, so we don't know how the monetization structure will work for the PC version, but it's basically Escape from Tarkov, but it's less hardcore. So you can actually pull up an interactive minimap. You can actually see a little icon above your teammates to avoid team killing. You can see where your extracts are. So it's less hardcore in those ways and more. And also, it's got some cool quality of life things that Tarkov does not have. So you can fold bags. So if you want to put one bag inside of another, it can actually take up less space, which is cool. And you can also pack a mag while moving, without having your backpack open. So it just keeps your hands busy, which I think is really cool. And there's probably some other quality of life stuff that I'm not familiar with in the game. But people are really liking it because I haven't played it. Jake played it a little bit. And yeah, people are saying it's pretty good. And Tarkov's been dropping the ball lately. They released an Unheard edition. I'm not going to get into all that, but basically the Battlestate games, the Tarkov dev, really screwed over a lot of their player base. And then also Gray Zone Warfare came out, and then like 2 weeks later, Arena Breakout Infinite entered beta. So that's where all the hype is right now. So I don't know. I just thought I'd mention it. If you're into Escape from Tarkov, or maybe you used to be or wanted to be, but it was too steep of a learning curve, you might want to look into this game because it's very similar to Tarkov. Like the healing system, the health system, the UI, the ammo system, the gun modifications, the task structure, the extraction shooter part. It's actually a Tarkov copy in a lot of ways. But it's also way easier to get into. Might be a good little stepping stone for you if you wanted to get into Tarkov, or if you just, maybe not a step, maybe a final destination. If you like Tarkov or like the concept, but it's too hardcore, which I totally understand. This might be the game for you. Gray Zone Warfare was also compared to Tarkov, but it was quite a bit different. It is quite a bit different, I should say, than Tarkov is. Arena Breakout Infinite is not different than Tarkov. It's the same thing, but more casual, actually. The same exact, like, play, flow, UI again, health system, ballistic system, ammo system, everything. So, something to look into, but it's not fully released yet. And honestly, I don't trust it because the mobile game is a microtransaction disaster, and it's like actually pay to win. I don't expect the PC version to be much better than that, and it's owned by Tencent, and they love monetizing. So, I don't know, but something to keep in mind. Anyway, that's it. We're done. I'm done, I should say. We will be back on Saturday, as I said, with that gun tier list part 1. And then Tanner will be back from Zion National Park next week. We'll have our schedule posted for you on Monday. And we will be back to our regularly scheduled programming if you're missing him. But he will be here for the Saturday episode. It was pre-recorded. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Patreon.com/thedropshot to support the show, or to support me morally, because I had to do this episode all by myself, and I was very lonely, nervous, and it was difficult. So join the Patreon to make me feel better, and stay humble.